What's up, everybody? Dave here from 124 Productions. Wanted to demystify the process of hiring a professional photographer for construction. There's quite a few things that you want to make sure that that photographer has, and we're just going to kind of rapid fire go through this list. And number one are safety certifications. You know, in construction, you need to have, at least in the United States, OSHA certifications, OSHA safety certifications. Now, a lot of photographers out there don't even have it. They don't know about it. So make sure that the company that you hire has those OSHA certifications. Typically, the ones that I see are OSHA 10-hour construction and then the fall prevention, depending on the state that you're in. And another certification that's absolutely 100% mandatory, and a lot of people don't know this, is if you want to get those drone shots, the drone photo or video in the United States, they need to be an FAA certified remote pilot, which means that they have a Part 107. If you get a shot with drones, regardless of how you use it, even if it's for an internal presentation or if it's for stakeholder engagement especially, then you need to make sure that they have their Part 107 with the FAA, or otherwise you could get in a lot of trouble. Number two is camera gear. So this is kind of one of those things where it's a little bit of a blurry issue. There's no right or wrong answer for what camera gear they should be using. They could be using any camera system, whether it's Canon, Pentax, Nikon, Sony, it doesn't matter. They all produce professional looking results. It's all about the person behind the camera that really makes a big difference. That being said, shooting with something like this does have its uses. There's a utility in this, but there's also utility in shooting with your phone. Sometimes the best chance that you have to get the shot that you need is with a small phone like this. It's all about the person behind the lens. And number three is probably the most useful tip for when you're going to interview the potential photographer. Ask them if they're shooting in RAW or JPEG. Now, there's nothing wrong with JPEG, but if the photographer is shooting in RAW, that gives them a lot more flexibility to do post-processing, the editing that you're going to ask for when they deliver the photo. So for example, if I'm shooting outside and it's a very bright day out, and there's a piece of equipment, there's a guy over maybe doing some hammering over by the equipment, but he's kind of in a little bit more shadow. Raw imagery allows me to pull up those shadows, bring down the highlights a lot more, so I can push and pull the image to get a better image for you when you want me to deliver it for print, a billboard, stakeholder engagement, social media, it doesn't matter. RAW will give you that flexibility. JPEG is typically what photographers will deliver in because it's a smaller, reduced file size, and that's easier for everybody to use immediately on Instagram or wherever it is that you want it. So ask them if they shoot in RAW or JPEG. If they only shoot in JPEG, that does not mean that they're a bad photographer. It does not mean that you're going to get bad photos, but if someone who shoots in RAW, they kind of have a little bit more flexibility, and that's usually what you want. Now, number four might seem obvious, but that's PPE. I've seen a lot of photographers show up with shorts and sneakers on, sometimes sandals. I have no idea how you work in sandals. Sometimes the photographers do have the PPE, but it's all branded. So maybe their hard hat has their logo on it, and that's just something that you want to have the conversation on if that's important, not for them to have it, because it all depends on what your job is. The last tip is making sure that the photographer understands everything in the RFP. RFPs, as you know, can get really kind of elaborate. Just double check that they know all the line items, even if they regurgitated it back in the proposal. Just make sure that they can kind of speak to all the elements of the RFP, 16 versus 8-bit RAW, the different deliverables within the video or photo space, depending on what it is that's being asked. Just kind of really poke at some of those specifics, even if you don't really know what some of those specifics mean in the photography side of things, because it can get really technical. Their answer or the way that they answer that question could really tell you a lot. Now, if you're looking for professional photo and video for your job, feel free to reach out. That's what we do. Even if you just have questions about it, we're happy to talk to you. But if I don't hear from you, until next time, be good to each other.